Young Friedrich Reitz is a promising talent in metallurgical engineering. He is one of those people who become successful at a very young age and decides to devote all their life and energy to their career. Getting a job with Karl Hofmeister is so far his biggest achievement. It is true that his position doesn't even allow the young man to lay his eyes upon the boss, and it is also true that his office looks like a small box of matches, but he doesn't care about it at all. Working late that night, he deserves attention from the boss, but not the kind he would like. It is great that he works, but punctuality is much more important for the man. Before walking away, Herr Hofmeister means his early breakfast tomorrow, and adds how greatly he hates the soup that is served to him. The young man has to get close to him, so from now on, he hates the soup as well. It is very early the next morning that his girlfriend learns about the surprising news. Out of nowhere, her boyfriend started to hate her homemade soup. Success really does change people. In any case, the truth is that Karl soon notices his talent and devotion and decides to give him more responsibilities. As a result, the young man soon finds himself in a new office with permission to see the boss anytime he needs. One evening, he is flexing his knowledge of Karl's company to the boss himself when the old man suddenly feels immeasurable pain in his chest area. Having no other option, Friedrich comes to his aid, gives him his medicine, and watches as the pain gradually fades away. There is no point in hiding it from the young man anymore. Karl has a very serious health condition, but nobody other than him must know of it in this company. And so, from this point on, Friedrich knows his boss's secret too. He is much closer to him now. It is very soon that Karl's condition becomes so serious that he is forced to stay home for a little while. When in the next scene Friedrich visits his palace of a house, he receives an offer for another promotion. The boss wants him to prepare daily reports for him and take his instructions back to the company. When the young man accepts this job, he will have to visit this palace very often. Friedrich takes his job very seriously. Without forgetting his humble origins, he works so hard that even Karl fails to catch up with him. Everybody has to take a break. One day, when Karl asks him to leave before his head explodes from all these numbers, Friedrich meets his young wife. Surprised to hear that she's Karl's spouse, the young man is speechless. This is one of the many reasons why he's speechless though. The girl's name is Lotta, and she was just about to get some tea. How British of her! Anyway, she is wondering if the young man would like to join her as well. She has heard a lot about him, and she clearly wouldn't say no to hearing more. It is definitely a great chance for Friedrich to bond with this beautiful woman, but he has a job to do, and he's already late. It was the next day that they finally managed to sit down together. From the very beginning, Friedrich learns that Lotta has a son, and Lotta learns that Friedrich either has poor manners or is extremely confused and anxious. After sharing her love for music and literature, however, she learns something much more surprising. The man has never tasted tea before. This is truly outrageous. Naturally, after this, the young woman listens to him with inflated attention. This is why she hears it very well when Friedrich tells her about his childhood. He never knew his father, and her mother died when he was very young. He grew up as a ward of the state and studied his mind off to achieve something in life. As he now states, studying hard was his only chance. In any case, it is clear that it all turned out very well for him. Before he leaves, Lotta mentions his son Otto for the second time. He will soon be coming home from school, where he struggles to catch up with his peers. As the mother says, he is one cheerful boy, but he finds it extremely hard to study well. Coincidentally, as it turns out, Friedrich has done some tutoring in the past. Noticing the chance to bond deeper with the family and help out the little kid, he offers to give the boy some extra lessons. Lotta is over the moon to hear this offer. She tells it immediately to Karl when he enters the room, and the boss has the same reaction. Before exiting again, he jokes that soon the young man will have the whole family under his wing. Well, you should be careful with what you joke about, Herr Hofmeister. And so, gradually, with time, the young man grows fonder and fonder of Lotta, while Anne craves his attention back home. She has no idea what might be brewing inside her lover's head, but as is written on Hofmeister's face in the next scene, he might be suspecting something already. As Otto becomes better in every subject, Lotta decides to give Friedrich a pay, even though the man has been tutoring her son voluntarily. For the young man, accepting the pay would mean accepting the fact that he is simply working for her and nothing else. This is why he declines the wage, and does it in a quite harsh manner. The woman feels apologetic afterward. She offers to stay for dinner, but the man declines this as well. Throughout the following days, he dives headfirst into work and thinks of nothing less, until one day, Karl decides to terminate their highly important conversation to listen to Lotta play his favorite piece of music. Lotta's piano playing is magnificent. Karl has always found it very affecting. The conversation they were engaged in was about Mexico's manganese supply. As it turns out, the named resource is quite scarce and expensive in Germany, so investing in Mexico would give their company a huge advancement. Furthermore, Mexico's supplies aren't widely known yet, so they will be the first ones to use them. Between pauses in the music, Hofmeister manages to understand pieces of whatever the young man is saying, and he likes the idea very much. After a few of his objections are answered, he decides to invest. In the next scene, Lotte does something extremely unusual. In secret, she visits Friedrich's neighborhood, speaks with Anna, and tells her that she's Friedrich's landlady. The confused girl does what she is asked to do immediately. She hands over the keys to her boyfriend's apartment immediately and promises the lady not to say anything about it to the young man. In the meantime, Friedrich is at his boss's house as usual, but he is doing the most unusual thing in the world. Sitting down in front of Lotte's piano, he bends down and smells the keyboard, as if he were trying to inhale Lotte's fingerprints. It isn't creepy at all, of course, he just likes the smell. Key after key, he goes till the end, until not only the servant who is secretly watching, but the piano itself feels a bit uncomfortable. In the next scene, the young man gets an enormous promotion. From now on, the job of Karl's private secretary is offered to him, along with lodgings at the palace. Naturally, this latter has everything to do with Lotte's visit to his neighborhood. At first, the young man says no to moving into Karl's house, but Lotte shows special attention to this matter, so the man finds himself totally cornered. Saying no would be extremely impolite now, so he decides to yield and leave Anna. The farewell is very emotional for the latter. Wanting to feel Friedrich's love for the last time, she tries to arouse him, but the young man has grown colder towards her. Still, passion explodes out of him almost unnaturally when he kisses her and gets in bed with her. The room that is given to Friedrich the next morning makes him feel like a prince. From now on, his everyday life will be filled with uptight servants, silence, and innumerable difficult English words. He will have to keep up. As it turns out, his boss retires to bed at 8:30 every day, save Christmas, so that night, Friedrich and Lotte are left alone. This is when the girl decides to share a little more of her history with her new housemate. As it seems, there is much more sadness to her character than is apparent at first glance. Before meeting her old husband, she was engaged to a childhood friend of hers, but the boy sadly passed away in a mountaineering accident. This is when her parents introduced Karl to the little girl, and this is why her husband is much older than her now. Until now, Friedrich thought that Lotte was somewhat like her own portrait, careless and flawless, but now his perception of her has completely changed. As time goes on, he becomes more and more familiar with the palace. He becomes a better friend with Otto as well. It is they who save Lotte from a mouse in the next scene. It is true that the little boy is a little too aggressive with the knife, but thankfully, everything ends peacefully and without blood. Speaking of peace, the next morning, Friedrich finds out that Lotte goes to church every Sunday morning. He has never had a special connection with God, but it is not surprising that he attended the service that day as well. That afternoon, Otto, Lotte, and Friedrich play in the garden so cheerfully that the old man finds himself feeling jealous and alone. As his family finds someone else to be happy with, he simply stands by and watches in heartache. What he cannot watch, however, is everything that happens in the next scene. It is raining outside when Friedrich catches a glimpse of Lotte while driving home. Immediately, he tells the driver to stop the car and brings her inside. The woman is wet and cold, and her frozen fingers need some warmth. This is the most intimate moment they have ever had so far, so there is no wonder why Lotte looks away. Still, nothing more happens, so the friendship can continue. That evening, Friedrich and Otto laughed so loudly that the old man could not help but storm inside his son's room and scream to stop it immediately. Thanks to Karl's recent annoyance with noise, Otto is especially happy when a town fair comes up. Lotte is especially effortful when asking Friedrich to come as well. The man has a lot to do, but the request is so heartfelt that he fails to say no. The fair has everything. The adults take a photo together, lose Otto, and learn about Friedrich's secret lover. They dance with others, and imagine dancing with each other. A thought naturally appears in Friedrich's mind. Compared to the old man, he could truly make her happy. As all of this is happening, Anna naturally feels abandoned. It's been a long time since she felt any love from her secret boyfriend, but since then, he hasn't even seen her once. One overcast day, she stops his car in the street and tells him all about it. Whatever Friedrich is doing, it isn't fair to her, and since he wants to carry on in this manner, he should go back to his mistress in the old man's house. Even though this moment is quite emotional for Anna, Friedrich seems to forget it very easily. In the next scene, he goes to the opera with Lotte, as if nothing has happened. It is almost funny to see him. Watch the performance, watch the shoulders, neck, and cheeks of Lotte. Her skin is almost ablaze, it shines and attracts his eyes. Who cares about the couple on the stage screaming their lungs out in a foreign language? Perhaps because of the aura in the opera, or perhaps because of the growing affection in his heart, Friedrich makes a mistake that night. After the opera, he asks Lotte to go back home without him. When the girl asks the reason for this request, he responds that they cannot continue lying to each other about their feelings. This has to stop before it becomes more serious. Lotte is infuriated by Friedrich's thought process. Enraged that he thought she would even think about cheating on her husband, she lets him know that he is terribly mistaken. She has no intention to speak to him anymore, but later that night, she is still forced to do so. Karl has one of his regular seizures, and she needs help to make him sit up. The old man wants to know everything about the night at the opera afterward. He doesn't know what he's asking for. The attack is so strong that Mr. Hofmeister is forced to stay in bed for a while. And so, it is from the bed that he lets Friedrich know about yet another one of his promotions. As business in Mexico is advancing, the old man needs someone on the spot to oversee the financial operations. There is no better man for the job than Friedrich. Naturally, the young man suspects that he is being exiled from Germany for personal reasons, but Karl seems extremely honest when saying that this isn't true. The feelings in the young man's heart are so strong and loud that he believes everybody else can hear them too. There is no reason for him to reject this offer, of course. Or to be frank, there is. But Friedrich naturally cannot tell Karl how he's planning on stealing his wife, so he must remain quiet and fly to Mexico for 2 whole years. What a cost for silence. So far, Lotte knows nothing of the news about Friedrich's latest promotion. In light of her recent behavior and attitude, we cannot say that her reaction to it will be dreadful, but in contrast to this, she flips out immediately after hearing it. In 10 days they are going to part ways for 2 years, and this news is so huge that the girl is forced to stop lying to herself and to Friedrich as well. Failing to breathe, her heart begins racing, and everything about her body and mind screams at her that she will die without him. As these feelings are shared between the two, Friedrich feels that the farewell is going to be that much more difficult after this. Later that day, once the intimacy is rejected by Lotte, a vow is given to love each other. In 2 years, they will reunite, and then they will have a chance to be together. Until then, however, they will have to fuel themselves with nothing but the power of this vow. That night, Friedrich kneels down in front of her to pick up pieces of her puzzle, when the closeness of her legs conquers his whole mind. His touch sets Lotte's body afire, but the passion she feels is tormenting rather than enjoyable. This is why she stops him, and this is why he doesn't object. When the night before departure comes, Friedrich finds himself under the spell of a genius idea. Sharing it with Lotte, he tells her to grab her daughter and tag along to Mexico, but naturally, it is not going to happen. What is going to happen, however, is that Karl will enter the dining room, and I will give him an enormous thank you for the sacrifices he is making. He will even light a cigar, even though one of his legs is clearly in a grave. The morning of departure is overcast and ominous. The lovers are parted, but the communication between them continues with letters. As the months go by, Lotte hides the writings of Friedrich like a travesty, but one day, a fear is born inside her that Karl might find out about them. It is that morning when the old man tells her about a letter he received from the young man from Mexico, saying that Friedrich has caught a terrible fever and almost died. This information has such a powerful effect on the girl that she finds herself unable to remain seated. Standing up, she storms outside the room and loses control of her feet while ascending the stairs. Karl is either blinding himself or he knows nothing about his own wife. Thankfully, Friedrich's gets better, and as nothing significant changes, the year 1914 comes. This, of course, means war. When the naval blockade starts, all traffic between the two continents is terminated, so after a while, Lotte stops receiving messages from Friedrich. Surely she must not fear anything since there is no war in Mexico, but with time and no word, nightmares start coming. Her wife is suffocating at night, but Karl finds himself in front of other life challenges as well. There is no point in it because of the blockade, but Lotte still writes her love that Karl's factory was ordered to manufacture artillery weapons. Naturally, as she says, the man objected, so they threw him away and gave the company to a military official instead. As a result, Karl has now fallen ill once more. This time, the episode turns out to be fatal. As sorrowful as it is, Karl soon passes away, but before that happens, he exposes his deepest secret. Sensing the approaching death, the man tells Lotte that he wants to bring her and Friedrich together from the very beginning. It was he who suffered for their relationship, but after seeing the result, he felt so much pain that he had to let him go. Now he regrets this decision, but unfortunately, there is nothing that he can do. When Lotte is left alone in this world, she takes Otto to a boarding school as well. In this moment, she justifies her decision rigorously, but deep down, she feels as if she is abandoning him. 6 years pass without any word from Friedrich, but Lotte keeps writing letters. Cherishing the love for him in her heart, she believes that he's still out there and that he will surely return to end this suffering of loneliness and separation. Her country loses the war, but she doesn't care a bit about the defeat. Time passes then, and when Otto turns 19, Lotte's telephone rings. From the expression on her face, it is obvious who is speaking from the other side of life. Her heart is racing so quickly that she feels forced to put down the phone for a while to calm herself down. It will happen tomorrow. Friedrich will be with her tomorrow. All the curtains in the house are thrown away as the endless morning is finished. The house is enveloped by fog when Friedrich finally appears in front of it in the following scene. Thanks to a servant's presence, the initial reunion of the couple is terribly reserved and official. It is almost impossible to remain calm and collected when a bomb is ticking inside your heart. As the two sit down to have tea together, we get a sense of confusion. There is an unusual restriction on their movements and words. There is no kissing, no genuine smiling, and no embracing. There's only news about business and lies about feelings. It is when this official performance ends that the real Friedrich decides to take a peek outside his own facade. Before leaving, he asks to be let inside his old room, and inside there, Lotte reminds him of the promise they once made. She hasn't forgotten it, and neither has he. Fortunately, we are not forced to witness yet another separation. Getting out of the house, they go to the same exact town where they once attended the fair. It has all changed now. A Nazi parade is about to take place, and every hotel is fully booked. Thankfully, however, a cousin of one of them sees Friedrich's cane and thinks that he's a war veteran. The couple doesn't object to this, of course, since they see that it is clearly getting them a room. Before the place is prepared for them, the two go for a walk outside. Passing through a great commotion, they appear on a meadow in front of a pond. Remembering the last time they were here, Lotte admits that all she wanted back then was to be with him. They were strangers back then, and they are strangers now. But the love between them is still as powerful as ever. It took so much time for them to reunite, but from now on, they will never leave each other again. Let's just not tell them about the Second World War.